wonderful use, the most wonderful use we can use of our imagination. And imagination, of course, is the power of the month. And we can see a little bit of light blue, which is the color around. Not much, but some of you have got the light blue. And Jenny, you've been doing some wonderful mandalas that are light blue. And I really love looking forward to them as they come up on our Facebook. Also, I was going back through some of my old notes. I tried to get out of doing this talk by finding an old one. Well, I did, but really, it was only yesterday afternoon that I thought, look, no, I need to do more. And so I sat down here and thought, and I had to use my imagination indeed. The title is Our Ever-Abundant Universe. Now, we know that we are more than just the physical body. We are spirit in action. St. Paul says we have a physical body out of which is sown a spiritual body. But if we don't have the wants of life and our basic necessities, we are not interested in the spiritual side of life. We're too busy with self-survival. And look at the people in the world today that aren't aware of the spiritual side of life because they are just so busy looking after themselves day by day. So what does abundant mean? Well, it means more than enough, sufficient and plentiful. We know that God has given us every good thing, and we live, move, and have our being in this wonderful power. It's always there. And Jill calls it the quantum field. It's got many names, regardless of religion, ritual, robe, or creed. It's the one presence and one power. So, why would our Creator, being infinite intelligence and the ocean of love and mercy, and has every good thing, why would that Creator want to create us? Well, put simply, the purpose of creation is that the Creator may express its own wholeness and goodness. And also the purpose of our individual expression is the one Creator may express through us as an individual. And we are all individual expressions of this one presence and one power. And when we hear the expression, no man can see God, it's beyond our imagination to imagine one thing as God. So we have our role to play with each other as we become individualized expressions, however we choose to express it. And we do have a choice. We are not clones. And so we have our own individual choices. And this is where the fun starts. Now, spirit, our Creator, never changes. But everything begins and ends in spirit, and its forms change. And we create the same way as our Creator. We are a microcosm in the macrocosm. As spiritual beings, we come into and out of form. Unity doesn't say too much about reincarnation, but Charles Fillmore and a lot of the people who are involved in Unity and other New Thought groups have delved into reincarnation. And I tend to rather think along those lines myself. It's a big subject, but that's up to the individual to decide. But as we know, our forms change. Our life here as creators is a mystery school. It's ups and downs, highs and lows. Oh my goodness, trying to balance all these different things. But that's what we're here to do, to balance the ups and downs so that we create that level playing field. More than ever, we need to keep the high watch, which I feel that we are doing. Some say we're born perfect. Well, we are, but we're in the process of expressing more and more of this perfection as time goes on. So What seeds are we sowing in our mind with this wonderful power of imagination? Well, look around us. We've all created this collectively or individually where we are and what's happening in the world. I was pondering on this and thinking of some of the movies that I've seen over the last 40 years, some horrible movies about floods, war. Oh, look, it's never ending, soppy romances. And all of a sudden, we look out there and it seems to be, it's not a movie anymore, it's the real thing. So what seeds has this media sown in our minds? And also with song titles, I've said this before, we have to be careful because music can go into our subconscious mind very easily. When we look back at some of the songs, and I was quite surprised actually, did you know there's a pop singer called Machine Gun Kelly? My goodness. And then I look back at some of the earlier songs I used to sing. Bonnie Tyler, I used to love that song. But when you think about it, total eclipse of the heart. My goodness, who wants that? But these are the things that go in and are sowing seeds in our mind, whether we like it or not. But one good thing is we can look at the other side of it and the wonder that the media and music has promoted for us, which has kept us uplifting and kept us even. We know, of course, now that with social media, one little thing can just go around the world and it's magnified and magnified, whether good or not so good. So we are learning to use this media now to promote our spiritual truths, which is what Jesus said. Take my teachings to the whole world. Well, now we can, because in one pop song, it goes around the world to millions in many countries. And I think one of the first ones when I thought about this was the John Lennon song called Beautiful Boy. He wrote it for his son. And in that, he introduces that mantra that many of us may have heard: every day and in every way, I am getting better and better. I'm sure some of you remember that. And in the background of that song, he's saying this to his son, Sean. So this is an example where not only did we have some rough sort of songs, but the Beatles in particular spread some beautiful, beautiful music and some of the wonderful words which they used. We'll feature one very soon. Okay, we need to spread this power, this information to people that need it. And we need to go over it ourselves many times. So how do we do this? Well, there's a book called The Science of Getting Rich. It doesn't sound like a very spiritual book, but it's a very practical book. And some of you know it. It's Wattle D. Wallace. I read it, and for the first time I thought, oh yes, that's good, but I got really into it. And he says that what tends to do away with poverty is not getting the pictures of poverty into your mind, but bringing the pictures of wealth into the minds of the poor. And that's only one book. Many of you here today have read one of the first ones I read, which was called Think and Grow Rich. I bought that book when I was 21. I thought, oh, good, I'll do it and I'll be rich. Well, it's not that simple. The advice is brilliant. But like everything else, if we want a healing, we have to do the work. And there was stuff in that book, I thought, oh, I'm not doing that. And I thought, well, I'll be rich. I'll do everything else, but I won't do this particular one. I won't do the stuff in that chapter. Well, of course, I didn't get rich. But seeds were sown from this book. And I like how he used imagination. He says there are two types. There's a synthetic imagination, which is where we build on what's already there. Like we can see, say, a canoe. And someone would say, there's only one person can get in that canoe. Let's build one that has two. Here we're building on stuff that's already out there and which we can add our own spin to. Many of us are good at that. But there's also the other type of imagination, which takes a little bit of work, and that is called creative imagination, where we go in and we have hunches and we have intuition and all these things. And this is the creative imagination that the great musicians, industrialists, and writers have used. They've tapped that part of themselves that's there. They bring it forth originally. Beethoven, the composer, used to say, and he wasn't a very well man, he managed to compose under the most dreadful ill health, but he said there is no joy in life apart from going to the Godhead and hearing this music. And he would just go into these states. He used to like to go into the countryside, and then he'd hear these sounds. And one of the great tragedies of his life is he became deaf as he got older. But that didn't stop the inner music. He could hear music from the inner worlds. And when you listen to his symphonies and the chorales, my goodness, you are listening to God. Mozart used something a little bit different. He liked to play billiards. He's a bit of a character, and when he was playing billiards, he had a little notebook and he'd jot down these little themes. And all of a sudden, he'd go home and think, there's that little theme, and the rest of it just came, and he wrote it out. Sometimes it had to be translated into what they call harmony and counterpoint, because for us to hear what God sounds like, I don't think we could stand it. It'll have to be brought into a language we can understand. So we have our 4-part harmony, and we have all these different instruments which speak to us in their own different way. And isn't it fascinating to know that imagination has given us the symphony orchestra? When you think about it, everything, it's either shaken like a tambourine, or it's something you blow through like a horn, or a reed for a saxophone, or a skin which you bang for a drum. It's all there. It all came from the basics: fire, air, earth, and water, and the original creation that we have here to work with. I'm getting excited here because I just find that it's such an interesting subject. You can read all you like, but we still have to do the work. But when I did do some research, I found that Napoleon Hill book, Napoleon Hill was 1883 to 1970. And I tend to think some of the inspiration for this book came from a couple of other people before that. Charles Fillmore, 1854 to 1948, wrote a book on prosperity. After that, we had Wattles, who was 1860 to 1911, and then Napoleon Hill. And of course, there's plenty of others, and they go on and on and on. I suppose some of us here know that Catherine Ponder is one of the famous ones that got a lot of us into this way of thinking, especially I did 20 years ago, or 40 years ago, when I went into the Theosophical Society, and there were her books. Think and Grow Rich was there as well, but her topics on prosperity and how to pray and get rich. Wonderful books. And you know what? Most people still use that material now, regardless of some of the wonderful titles that we've got. I know that we had a class here. I think it was you, Leslie, and we had a book called Even Mystics Have to Pay Bills. And I enjoyed that class. And there's another one too, I think it's called Soul of Money. These are books that we all now can look at, and somehow they seem more receptive than some of the old books. Okay. In the early days of New Thought, healing seemed to be the most main topic that people were interested in. Then gradually it came to prosperity. And so we're all thinking and praying for ourselves. I remember one writer in a magazine saying, oh, she said, I flew into Las Vegas on this millionaire's private jet. Then we got a helicopter and landed on the roof of the Hilton. I descended into into the ballroom, came down the steps, and abundance was flowing. I felt blessed, and there was a grand piano playing, and I had the most wonderful birthday party. Now, that was that. Now, it's very tempting to think that's the only way we can use this. Well, there's nothing to stop us from doing it, because it's good that we are abundant, because by being abundant, we can help more people because we can afford to. But over the last few years, we've known that none of us is an island unto themselves. And I mentioned earlier in the service about how when I go into my AGA here in the next little town, I look at the kids behind the checkout and the people stocking the shelves, the guy in the petrol. I think these people have been out for the last year and a half doing this. What a job. And other people that are doing, the doctors and nurses and all these people, they are amazing. Where would we be without them? Abundance or no abundance? They have gone about their job. So I want to see pictures of abundance out there. And I want people to be aware that we have this power. It's not easy if you dress it up in sort of religion, I suppose, but now we're moving into a more eclectic way of talking about this one presence and one power. And here again, the quantum theory, the great matrix. These books, especially by Greg Braden, they're bringing new people in to this philosophy. It's not a secret, and it's always been there, but people haven't had the consciousness. It's only when they're ready that they have the consciousness, but it's got to be there for them. It's got to be in their atmosphere so that they can take that seed. It might be just one or two words from someone that says something kind. And that seed, what's the song? From little things, big things grow. We must play that sometime. So I'm moving a bit on, but I'll get to the last page, I think. Time is precious at the moment. And all I wanted to say is that whether you believe or not believe, that's how your life will be. So it works if you work it, as you know, and we want to use this imagination to increase our abundance in every way possible. And finally, we come in and out of form. And as I mentioned earlier, St. Paul, the verse is John 12, verse 8. There is a physical body out of which is born a spiritual body. We have to get ready for that and store up that abundance in heaven, that state of mind, that place where our soul continues to grow. So we store up this spiritual abundance, which will stay with us as we move on. And we heard the word gratitude in the meditation. That is a power. I loved how that was put. Gratitude is a power. We give gratitude for what we have and for what we already can achieve and will achieve. And we surrender into the powerful, powerful intuition and inner guidance that is always there, and listen. But we still have to do the work. As we said, we go in and out of form. I will finish with this poem. I might have said this a couple of weeks ago. Oliver Wendell Holmes. Build me more stately mansions, O my soul, as the swift seasons roll. Leave the low vaulted past. Let each new temple nobler than the last, till thou at length are free, leaving thine outgrown shell by life's unresting sea. So I'll leave you with that thought, and let's have an abundant, happy time in this particular time that we're going through. Many blessings. Thank you.